Hello, welcome to another component showcase video, and sorry I've been a bit inactive recently, but I'm back, and I just thought I'd come on here with a mic today because I've got a pretty interesting system. It's an unloading array, and recently Optic released an unloading array and inspired me to try and come up with my own system. Before I explain how the system works, I'm going to explain how you would conventionally utilize variable box sorting to parallelize your input. I'm using this system here. This system does not work exactly how I'm going to describe it, but it's just going to provide some useful context to show what I'm trying to show here. So if I just start this, we have shulker boxes coming in of only a single item type, and we start sending them through the variable sources. And what we do is that we slowly begin to map these variable sources of different item types. And so we start empty over here, and eventually we will map this to an item type. What this means is that any shulker box with a corresponding item type to what's configured in the variable sources here will essentially be filtered into that slice and then unloaded and batched out. And so what this ensures is that we unload a different item type for each slice, and so that for our filters down here, we're not going to overflow our filters, and so in that way we don't have too many items coming through that we can't process. Once we map our final slices here, we then send any overflow boxes into this storage here, and this storage is locked, and it will wait until we send all of the shulker boxes from a batch through the system, and then by doing this we've essentially eliminated 16 item types from a batch, and then the remaining items are then sent back again through the input, and then we eliminate another 16 item types, and this repeats until we've got rid of all of the shulker boxes in a batch, and then we send the next batch. In order to avoid batching items, what we can do is we can use a different logic setup so that we can map and unmap different slices in a different way. To explain how we can map and unmap slices so that we don't have two or more slices mapped to the same item, I'm going to use an animation. And just to note one thing, that I'm going to be using different color shulker boxes, and because our shulker boxes come from the output of splitters, they're going to have only a single item type. And so when I use a white shulker box, for example, it's going to contain only white concrete, and a purple shulker box will, for example, mean that we only contain purple concrete in that box. And so one thing to note is that we actually have two inputs, input A and input B, and the key thing about it is that if we input a shulker box through input A, we can't map empty slices, so they're just going to go straight over if it's empty. And then input B is different because we actually can map slices if a shulker box will go over a certain slice. And here we have 6 slices. In the actual system, we use 16. So if we start introducing shulker boxes to the system, we will send them straight through input A. And because all of these slices are empty, they will be sent straight across all of them, and they'll be sent back to the second input. And then because we can actually map slices through the second input, what will happen is that we will map the first empty available slice to white concrete, and that shulker box will be unloaded. If we then send a shulker box of the same item types, in this case white concrete, then we'll send it through input A again, and it will get filtered into the correct slice, and the box will then get unloaded. If we then send a new item type, so in this case orange concrete, then it will go straight across the white filter and across all of the empty slices, because from input A you can't map any empty slices. It will then get sent straight into input B. It will then go over the white filter and map the next available slice, and then all this will be unloaded, and then this the second slice will then be mapped. If we then start introducing more shulker boxes, you can see what's going to happen here. We start sorting the boxes into their correct slice, and if we bring in 2 purple boxes in rapid succession, then it doesn't matter if the second one is a bit too quick and we miss the mapping of the first box. It will just get filtered from input B again. So this is perfectly fine if this happens. The boxes will just get filtered to the correct position. This process will then repeat until we have all of our slices mapped to different item types. If we then send a new item type, so in this case a pink shulker box, this will go across the first input and it will fail to get sorted. It will then also go through the second input, fail to be sorted, and it will be put into a third box storage in the back, and this will wait until the next cycle to be sorted. After a set period of time, what we then do is we unmap any slice that is considered idle. So what that means is that we don't have any shulker boxes in queue for that slice, and it's finished unloading everything in its queue. So once that's happened, every 30 seconds or so, we'll check for idle slices, and they will then get unmapped, and we briefly stop the main input for this to happen. We then start the main input again, and you can now start to see the advantage of a system like this. If we introduce a new item type, in this case blue concrete, what you find is that the blue concrete will not go to the next available slice because we can't map slices from input A, and it will just be sent to its correct position. If we then put a new item type in, it will then go to the next available slice from input B, and it will map the next available slice to blue concrete in this case. It's also during this time that we send off any shulker boxes from the third box storage, in this case pink concrete, into the next available silo through input B. And we can do this safely because we know the shulker box has an item type which is not any of the item types of any of the slices, and so we're not going to risk mapping 2 or more slices to the same item type. If we do have a large number of shulker boxes that have overflowed and are in box storage 3, when we send them off, we will wait for any shulker boxes that don't match the item type until we've actually finished unloading all of them, and then we can send them back to wait into the third box storage for the next cycle. The overall outcome of a system like this is that we don't need to batch our shulker boxes at all. We can use almost completely continuous input. The reason we can do this is because we're effectively sending the current cycle and the next cycle simultaneously. I want to explain in a bit more depth as to how the actual system itself works, and I want to explain how we achieve these 2 inputs through a single set of dropper lines. So if I turn on the clock, then what we actually do is we send a clock pulse through each slice, and what we do is we constantly lock and unlock this hopper here, and we do the same for all of the slices in a way where it's timed with the speed of the items through the dropper lines. And what this means is that because this slice is empty, what we do is that we send we'll attempt to send a box through from input A, and then we then have the slice as locked, so when the shulker box comes over, it's not going to end up in this hopper, and then we will attempt to send a shulker box from input B, and then this hopper will be locked. And so then if it's configured to the same item type, then we can actually map this, and then once it's mapped, this repeater will then be constantly off, and so this hopper will be constantly off, and so then if a shulker box comes in with the corresponding item type, then it will get sorted here, and then we will then recombine box and item, and we then unload it down here. So if we start inputting shulker boxes, here I've put in 4 double chests of 27 different item types. What we find is that we try to send a shulker box every other time, essentially. So from input A we send a box, and then we send someone from input B, which there aren't any at the moment, and this will slowly go across the system. Once our shulker boxes from input B eventually do arrive, then we can actually start mapping our slices. What we then do is recombine box and item, and if a shulker box comes from input A, then it's just sent simply straight back to input B, where we send it through this dropper line again. And if we then map all of our slices, then the overflow from input B is then sent to bulk storage 3, which is here, and we should start getting shulker boxes appearing here soon. And the way we actually detect if a shulker box has come through from input A or B and where to send them to is we use a latch here, which will just move them into the correct dropper line, and so we'll eventually start getting shulker boxes in here. Once we then want to unmap the system, we then unload any shulker boxes from bulk storage 3 back into input B, and so this should happen any second now. There we go, we're unloading the shulker boxes. Here we can see the unloaders fully working. We will never have two shulker boxes of the same item type unloading at once. And it might be that we have two of the same colour here. That's perfectly fine because this one is concrete and this one is concrete powder. So we just run out of colours essentially, but it is two different item types. Here we can see that all of the slices have finished unloading and have also unmapped themselves, indicated by this block moving to the side here and on the other side. And so this means that we've unloaded all of our shulker boxes, and if we check the output, we have no overflow boxes, and we've unloaded all of our different item types into the correct filter without any overflow. Here you can see the actual slice itself. It's made from two components, the unloader section and the variable box sorter. It's toggle stateless and dustless. And if you take a closer look at the variable box sorter part, the overall system is 2 by tileable, and you can see that we have our clock pulse, which comes in through this repeater, and we will slowly, every 16 game ticks, lock and unlock this hopper here, meaning that we can sort out our input A boxes and our input B boxes. And so when a shulker box comes through, then we can send a pulse through this rail line, which will force this to be unlocked essentially, and we have to do this quite quickly so that we can catch the next box. Any overflow will be sent into this dropper line, and it will go into an overflow water stream, and any overflow boxes will just simply get sent straight back to input 1 again. The timings for the recombining of the box and item was based off of the timings that Crane used in his pair searcher. And here we have the unloaders. This bottom section was made by Optic, and the unloader is based off of Refuse design. And if we just demonstrate this, we have a queue of 2 double chests, and we will slowly start unloading and collecting our empty boxes into a separate stream, and we'll be unloading our boxes into a batching system. I won't go into too much depth about the external logic for this machine, but I will mention that we have this bulk storage here, which was made by Optic, where we have one side locked and the other side also locked, whereby in one slice we can unload but not take any items in, and it's the exact opposite for the other slice, and so this is needed for the overflow bulk storage. In summary, I would say the system probably isn't worth it on average because it has a lot of added complexity, and we also have to have a slow clock speed to allow for our 2 inputs. But for a larger amount of items and item types, this could be interesting, and I just wanted to share the logic behind how this worked. So that's about it. Thanks for watching.